8 years old, and I live in a humble little house on the outskirts of Cleveland, Ohio. I inherited it from my parents over a decade ago. For 3 months, my son David has been calling me every night, exactly at 9:15, to ask me if I'm alone. Yesterday, I decided to lie to him for the first time, and that lie saved my life. I want to tell my story as a warning to other parents. Parents who, like me, would never think their own children could become their greatest threat. Before I continue my story, I want to ask you a favor. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Your support is very important. Yesterday afternoon started like any other. I made my coffee. The same coffee I have every afternoon after coming back from the auto shop where I work part-time. At 58, heavy labor isn't for me anymore. But I still have good hands and knowledge that the young guys appreciate. I was cleaning some tools in the sink when my cell phone rang. "Hello?" I answered, drying my hands on a rag. "Dad, it's me." My son David's voice sounded the same as always, flat, almost emotionless. "Ah, son, how are you? Everything okay at work?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation normal, even though I already knew what was coming. "Yeah, everything's fine," he replied quickly. Then came the usual question. "Are you alone right now?" My heart sped up. For 3 months I had answered truthfully. "Yes, I'm alone." And every time, without fail, David would hang up immediately. The few times someone was with me and I told him, he would bombard me with questions. Who's there? What are they doing at the house? How long are they staying? This time, something inside me told me I had to lie. No, I'm not alone," I answered, gripping the phone tightly. Amanda stopped by for coffee. The silence on the other end of the line was brief, but noticeable. "Amanda? The lawyer?" His voice changed. The tension was obvious in every syllable. "What is she doing there?" "She came to help me with some papers for the house," I improvised. "You know, that paperwork I never seem to understand." "What papers? What are you talking about?" David insisted, his voice getting more agitated. "Nothing important, son. Just the deed to the house. Taxes. Old man stuff," I said, trying to sound casual. "Why? Do you need something?" "No," he answered curtly. "We'll talk tomorrow." He hung up without saying goodbye, as usual. I stood there looking at the phone, with a mix of relief and worry. It was the first time in 3 months that I had broken the pattern, and David's reaction unnerved me. I left the phone on the table and walked to the window. The little house my parents left me isn't much. 2 small bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen diner, and a small living room. But it's my home, filled with memories and a lifetime of hard work. I never thought I would have to protect it from my own son. David was born when I was 26. His mother, Lucy, and I never got married, but we tried to raise him together until she decided to move to Chicago when he was 7. I kept custody because she traveled constantly for work. It wasn't easy raising a boy alone, but I did the best I could. My son was always quiet, intelligent, observant. He studied business administration and got a good job at an insurance company in Cleveland. We saw each other for lunch on Sundays, holidays, the normal stuff between an adult father and son. There were never any major conflicts between us, until 3 months ago. It all started with little things, objects that weren't where I had left them, documents in my drawer that appeared in a different order, the feeling that someone had been in my house when I wasn't there. At first I thought it was my memory playing tricks on me. At my age, you start to doubt yourself. Then the calls started. Every night. 9:15. On the dot. The same question. "Are you alone?" I tried to ask David why he wanted to know, but he always dodged the subject. Or he'd say he was just worried about me, that he didn't want me to be alone at my age. One day, coming home from work, I noticed my toolbox was open. My big wrench was missing. I thought maybe I had lent it out and forgotten. 2 days later, the drawer where I keep important documents was slightly open, even though I was sure I had closed it. That's when I decided to install cameras. It's not something a father wants to do, spying on his own home, out of fear of his son. But something wasn't right. My friend Ray, who works at an electronics store, helped me install 2 small cameras. one in the living room and one pointed at the front door. He showed me how to check the recordings on my phone. The first night, nothing happened, nor the second. On the third night, I woke up with a start at 3 in the morning. I thought I heard a noise, but when I checked the house, I found nothing unusual. In the morning, I checked the recordings. My heart almost stopped. At 2:37 inches the morning, the front door opened slowly. David walked in, using a key I never gave him. He moved with the familiarity of someone who knows every corner. He went straight to the document drawer, took out several papers, photographed them with his cell phone, and then carefully put them back. Afterward, he walked silently toward my bedroom. He opened the door just enough to look inside. He watched me sleep for almost a full minute, and then left as stealthily as he had arrived. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. My own son was entering my house while I slept. Why? What was he looking for? Since when did he have a key? 1,000 unanswered questions swirled in my head. That day, I called Amanda Vance, a lawyer friend of mine for years. I met her when she helped me with the inheritance of this house. She's a direct, honest woman, and the only person I felt I could trust right now. We met at a coffee shop far from my house and David's office. I showed her the video and told her about the nightly calls. "Michael, this is very serious," Amanda said after watching the recording. "It's not just trespassing. It's a violation of your privacy and safety. Have you noticed anything else strange?" I told her about the moved objects, the missing wrench, and a detail I had remembered that morning. About 4 months ago, David asked to borrow $50,000 for an emergency investment. I gave him the money without asking many questions. I trust him, and he's never been irresponsible with money. Now I wondered if there was a connection. "We need to know what's going on," Amanda said. "I can help you legally, but first we have to understand what David is looking for. Do you have anything of value he might want?" I shook my head. "I live on my pension and what I earn at the shop. The house is the only thing I have, and it's not worth much in this area." "And what documents was he looking at?" "They looked like my bank papers, the deed to the house, and I think my driver's license." Amanda frowned. "Michael, do you think you could find out what's going on in David's life? Does he have financial problems? Addictions? Bad influences?" "I don't know," I confessed. "We've drifted apart in recent years. He divorced Jessica 2 years ago, and since then he's been more withdrawn. But he always shows up for our Sunday lunches, though lately he's quiet, distant." "And you haven't noticed changes in his behavior, besides the calls?" I thought for a moment. Sometimes it seems like he's talking to himself, mumbling things I can't understand. And one time I saw him arguing heatedly on the phone, but when I asked, he said, "It was just a difficult client." Amanda took my hand across the table. Her gesture comforted me, but her words chilled me to the bone. "Michael, we need to know what your son is planning. If he has a copy of your key and is reviewing your personal documents, he could be plotting something serious. Do you have a way to get into his apartment?" The idea seemed crazy at first. Enter my son's apartment without his permission? But I remembered how he had entered mine, how he watched me sleep, and I knew Amanda was right. "I have an emergency key," I admitted. "He gave it to me when he moved in. Just in case." "Good," she nodded. "I think we should go today, while he's at work. We won't touch anything. We'll just try to understand what's happening." That afternoon, with a knot in my stomach, I found myself in front of the apartment building where David lives. Amanda was by my side. Her presence gave me the courage I lacked. We went up to the 3rd floor and, after making sure no one was watching, I opened the door with the emergency key. The apartment was impeccably tidy, as always. David inherited my sense of order. But something felt different. A strange energy filled the air. Amanda pointed to the desk in the corner of the living room. "Let's start there." We approached and, careful not to move anything, we examined the papers scattered on the surface. Overdue bills, bank statements showing an alarming negative balance, and collection letters from several financial agencies. "He's in debt up to his neck," Amanda murmured, reviewing the amounts. "Over $500,000. Did you know any of this?" I shook my head. feeling like I knew my own son less and less. We kept looking and found something that took my breath away, a power of attorney document, in David's name, giving him administrative rights over Michael Stafford's assets. My supposed signature was there, but I had never signed such a document. "It's fake," I said in a trembling voice. "I never signed this." "It's a crude forgery," Amanda confirmed after examining the paper. Any experienced notary would spot it. In the top desk drawer we found something even more disturbing, a small, unlabeled vial containing a clear liquid. Next to it, a printed sheet with instructions on sedative dosages and their effects on the elderly. "Michael," Amanda's voice sounded alarmed, "we have to get out of here and call the police." At that moment my phone vibrated. It was a text message from my neighbor, Helen Carter. "Mr. Stafford, sorry to bother you, but I went into your house because I smelled gas. I found something strange connected to your stove. I think you should come quickly. I felt the air leave my lungs." I showed the message to Amanda. "Let's go. Now," she said, taking quick photos of the documents and the vial. "This is more serious than we thought." We hurried out of the apartment, with the terrible suspicion that my own son was planning something unthinkable. As we were going down the stairs, my phone rang. It was David. "Dad." His voice sounded strangely calm. "Where are you?" "I stopped by your house and didn't find you. Fear paralyzed me. It was barely 3 in the afternoon. David should have been at work, not looking for me at my house." "I'm with Amanda," I managed to say, clinging to the lie I had started the night before. "We're reviewing some legal matters." "Where?" he insisted. "I need to see you urgently." I looked at Amanda, who subtly shook her head. "We're at her office," I lied, "but we'll be a while. Why don't we meet later?" There was a long silence before he answered. "It doesn't matter. We'll talk tonight." He hung up, and I knew in that moment that something terrible was about to happen. The lie I had told the night before, assuring him I wasn't alone, had disrupted his plans. And now, as we raced toward my house, I wondered what exactly I had interrupted and what we would find when we arrived. The clock read 3:15 p.m. In less than 6 hours, my son would call again, asking if I was alone. This time, I knew my answer would determine much more than a simple conversation. It could determine if I would live to see another dawn. Amanda and I reached my house in less than 20 minutes. Helen was waiting for us at the entrance, visibly nervous. She's a woman in her 70s who has lived next to my house for as long as I can remember. She knew my parents and has watched me grow old. Her normally kind face was tense. "Michael, thank goodness you're here," she said when she saw us. "I came to drop off the tortillas I promised you, and I smelled something strange. Like gas, but different." "Did you go inside?" I asked as I unlocked the door. "Yes. Forgive the intrusion. I have the emergency key you gave me years ago. I got very worried and decided to check." The 3 of us went in. The house looked normal, but Helen led us straight to the kitchen. "Look," she pointed toward the stove. "I found this connected in the back." I bent down to get a better look. It was a small digital device connected to the main gas line. It had a screen displaying numbers. 2, 3. "It's a timer," Amanda said, examining it without touching it. "It seems programmed to activate at 3 in the morning." "Activate for what?" Helen asked, carefully. I followed the wires coming out of the timer. They were connected to a valve that didn't belong to my original setup. "To open the gas," I answered in a thin voice, "at 3 in the morning, while I'm sleeping." We looked at each other in silence, understanding the gravity of what we had found. My son wasn't just entering my house at night. He had installed a mechanism to release gas while I slept. "We have to call the police," Amanda said, pulling out her phone. "Wait," I stopped her. "We need more concrete proof. If we accuse my son without sufficient evidence, he could deny everything." "What more proof do you want, Michael? This is attempted murder." "I know," I replied, feeling every word burn my throat. "But we need to understand the whole plan. Why is he doing this? I want to be sure before I destroy his life." Amanda looked at me with a mix of understanding and frustration. "So what do you propose?" "The vial we found in his apartment. We need to know what's in it." Helen, who had listened to our conversation with growing horror, chimed in. I know someone who might be able to help. My nephew Theo is a forensic chemist at the state lab. If it's urgent, he might be able to analyze it discreetly. That would be perfect, Amanda said. But first, let's disconnect this thing and document everything. She took photos of the device from several angles while I, with trembling hands, carefully disconnected it. We put it in a plastic bag along with the tools David had used to install it. You can't stay here tonight, Amanda said. It's too dangerous. He can stay at my house, Helen offered. I have an extra room since my son moved to the States. I shook my head. I have to be here when David calls at 9:15. If I don't answer, or if I'm somewhere else, he'll suspect something is wrong. Then we'll stay with you, Amanda decided. You're not facing this alone, Michael. We spent the next hour meticulously searching the house for other devices. We didn't find anything, but the fear was already settled in. My own home had become a death trap. Let's go see your nephew right now, I told Helen, holding the bag with the vial we had brought from David's apartment. We need to know what this is before dark. The lab where Theodore Alvarez worked was about 40 minutes from my house. During the drive, Amanda called a friend of hers who works for the police, Captain Marcus Reed. She explained the situation without mentioning names. She asked him for advice on how to proceed. He says we need solid evidence, she informed me after hanging up. With what we have now, we could get a search warrant for David's apartment. But first, we must confirm what's in that vial. Theo met us at the back entrance of the lab. He's a young man, about 35, with thick glasses and a serious expression. He took us to his private office, where we explained the situation. This is very serious, Uncle Michael, he said after hearing our story. Even though we're not related, he's always called me that out of respect. I can analyze the contents right now, but I must warn you, if I find anything illegal, I'll have to report it officially. We understand, Amanda replied. We just want the truth. While Theo worked in his lab, I sat in a chair staring into space. How had it come to this? At what point did my son, the boy I raised with so much love, decide my life was worthless? Michael. Amanda's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Have you noticed any changes in David's behavior in recent months? Anything unusual, besides the calls? I tried to remember. He quit his job at the insurance company about 6 months ago. He said he found something better, but never specified what. Since then, his hours seem strange. Sometimes he doesn't answer my calls for days, and then shows up as if nothing happened. And he didn't mention financial problems? He didn't ask for more money after that $50,000? Not directly, I recalled. But 2 months ago, he asked me if I had thought about selling the house. He said he could get me a good price, that at my age I'd be better off in a smaller, easier-to-maintain apartment. I told him no, that I wanted to die in my parents' house. And how did he react? He got upset. He said I was stubborn, that I wasn't thinking about my future. It was our first big argument in years. Amanda took notes on her phone. Do you know if he has health insurance, life insurance, anything like that? The question seems strange. I guess so. He worked at an insurance company. It would be weird if he didn't have coverage himself. And you? Do you have any life insurance policy where he's the beneficiary? Before I could answer, Theo returned to the office. His expression was grim. I have the preliminary results, he said, taking off his latex gloves. It's a mix of barbiturates and a synthetic fentanyl derivative. In small doses, it causes drowsiness and confusion. In larger doses, respiratory depression and cardiac arrest. Is it detectable in an autopsy? Amanda asked. Not easily, especially if the death is attributed to another cause, like gas inhalation. They would need specific toxicology tests that aren't standard in every case. The pieces were starting to fit. A meticulous plan to eliminate me without raising suspicion. Michael, Amanda put her hand on my shoulder. I think David is trying to murder you for money. The debts, the forged power of attorney, the device on the stove, this substance, it all points to a life insurance policy or something similar. But I don't have any insurance policy worth anything, I answered, confused. Just the basic one that comes with my pension. It's not worth more than $50,000. We need to find out if David took out a policy in your name, Theo said. He worked at an insurance company, right? He could have forged your signature on more documents. I looked at the clock. 6:30 p.m. Less than 3 hours until David's usual call. Let's go back home, I decided. I need to be there when he calls. Theo kept a sample of the liquid as evidence and walked us to the exit. I'll give you my official report tomorrow. In the meantime, be very careful. If we're really dealing with a planned murder attempt, the person responsible could take desperate measures if they suspect they've been discovered. Back at home, Amanda made more calls. She contacted a friend who works in the fraud department of an insurance company. She asked him to investigate if there was any recent policy in my name. I have another theory, she said while we waited. What if David took out a life insurance policy on you without your knowledge? With his experience in the field, he would know how. But he'd need my signature. Medical exams, all forgeable, especially for someone with contacts in the industry. And it would explain why he was looking at your documents. He needed personal information, copies of your ID, maybe your medical history. The idea was so twisted I had trouble accepting it. My own son, planning my death for money. At 8:45, Amanda's friend called back. She hung up and looked at me. You were right, she told her friend. A life insurance policy exists in your name for $1.5 million, taken out 4 months ago with National Insurance. The sole beneficiary is David Stafford. What's interesting is that the policy has a special clause that doubles the payout in case of accidental death. $3 million, I murmured, processing the number. All this for money? The debts we saw in his apartment were over $500,000, Amanda recalled. Maybe he's more desperate than we imagined. As I was processing this, the house phone rang. I looked at the clock. 9:10. 5 minutes before David's usual call time. It was strange for him to use the landline instead of my cell. Don't answer, Amanda warned. He might be checking if you're home. We let it ring until the machine picked up. No one left a message. At 9:15 on the dot, my cell phone vibrated. It was David, punctual, as always. Put it on speaker, Amanda whispered. I nodded and answered. Hello, Dad? David's voice sounded different, tenser than usual. How are you? Fine, son. And you? Busy. Lots of work. He paused. Are you alone? I looked at Amanda, who nodded slightly. No, I replied. Amanda is still here. We've been reviewing some important documents all day. The silence on the other end was longer than usual. What documents? Nothing special. House stuff. Is she staying the night? The question was too direct. Almost aggressive. Probably, I improvised. It's late, and we still have a lot to review. Another silence. I could almost feel my son's frustration through the phone. Dad, I need to talk to you alone. It's important. Can I come over now? Amanda shook her head vigorously. It's not a good time, son. Can we talk tomorrow? I'll buy you breakfast. It's urgent, he insisted. It'll only take 5 minutes. Really? I can't tonight. We're in the middle of something important. What could be so important? His tone turned hostile. What exactly are you reviewing? I felt a chill. The conversation was taking a dangerous turn. David, we'll talk tomorrow. I love you, son. No. Wait. I hung up. Immediately, the phone rang again. I didn't answer. He's coming, Amanda said, standing up. I'm sure of it. Let's call the police. Now. Before I could answer, we heard a noise at the back door. Someone was trying to open it with a key. It's him, I whispered, terrified. Amanda grabbed her phone and dialed quickly. Marcus, we need help immediately, she said in a low voice. She gave him my address and hung up. The police are on their way, she informed me. But they'll be at least 10 minutes. The sound of the key turning in the lock paralyzed us. The back door opened slowly. Dad? Are you there? David's voice sounded strangely calm. I didn't answer. Amanda and I looked at each other, weighing our options. My house is small. Not many places to hide. I know you're here, David continued, walking into the kitchen. Your car is outside. I made a decision. I stood up and walked toward the kitchen. Amanda tried to stop me, but I signaled for her to stay back. I'm here, son, I said, facing him. David was standing by the stove, exactly where the device we disconnected hours earlier had been. He was carrying a small backpack, and his gaze quickly scanned the kitchen, looking for something. "Where's Amanda?" he asked, his voice controlled but his eyes restless. "She went out to buy something for dinner." "What's so urgent it can't wait until tomorrow?" David put his backpack on the kitchen table. "I wanted to talk about the house. I've been thinking about what we discussed. About you selling it. I already told you, I don't want to sell." "It's what's best for you," he insisted. "This neighborhood isn't safe anymore for an older person living alone." "I'm not that old, David. And I like my life here." My son walked over to the stove and looked behind it, immediately noticing something was missing. "Have you been moving things around here?" he asked, his tone now tighter. "What do you mean, the gas connection? It looks like someone tampered with it." "The repairman came yesterday," I lied. "There was a small leak." David stared at me, evaluating my answer. Then, without warning, he opened his backpack and took out a vial identical to the one we found in his apartment. "I brought you some vitamins," he said, placing the vial on the table. "For your blood pressure. You should take them tonight. Before bed." My heart was beating so hard I was afraid he could hear it. "Thanks. But I already took my medication. These are new, more effective." He opened the vial and took out 2 white pills. "Take them now. They'll help you sleep better. I'd rather wait until tomorrow. I want to check with my doctor first." David's expression changed. I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before, a calculating coldness I didn't recognize in my son. "I insist, Dad. It's for your own good." He walked toward me, holding out his hand with the pills. Just then, Amanda appeared in the kitchen doorway. "The police just arrived, Michael," she announced in a firm voice. David spun around, surprised. His hand instinctively closed over the pills. "Police? Why did you call the police?" he asked me, his voice trembling now. Before I could answer, 2 uniformed officers entered the kitchen. Behind them came Captain Marcus Reed, in plain clothes. "David Stafford?" Reed asked. My son nodded, visibly nervous. "We have some questions about a device found in this house. A vial of controlled substances, and an insurance policy taken out 4 months ago," the captain continued. "I suggest you come with us to the station." David looked at me, his eyes now filled with panic. For an instant, I saw the scared little boy I once comforted after a nightmare. Then, his expression changed again, hardening. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. "I just came to visit my father, to bring him some vitamins." The captain pointed to the vial on the table. "Are those the vitamins? Do you mind if we have them analyzed?" In that moment, David seemed to collapse. His shoulders slumped, and all the tension in his face transformed into an expression of defeat. "He ordered me to do it," he murmured, so low I barely heard him. "He said it was the only way." "Who ordered you, son?" I asked, approaching cautiously. David looked up, his eyes strangely empty. "The man in the corner, the one who talks to me when no one else is around. He said if I didn't do it, he would come for me." A chill ran down my spine. There was no man in any corner. My son was talking about voices in his head. "David, how long have you been hearing this man?" the captain asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. "For a while. Months. Years, maybe." David put his hands to his head. He wanted me to make sure Dad was alone, that no one interfered. I looked at Amanda, whose eyes reflected the same painful understanding that mine surely did. This was beyond debt, beyond money. My son was sick, gravely ill. As the officers handcuffed David and read him his rights, I felt my world fall apart. The police confiscated the vitamin vial and checked my son's backpack, finding more devices similar to the one we had disconnected from the stove. "Mr. Stafford," Captain Reed said as they led David away, "we'll need your formal statement tomorrow, and I think you should consider requesting a psychiatric evaluation for your son." I nodded, unable to speak. I watched them put David in the patrol car. His lost gaze broke my heart. How had I not noticed he was suffering? How had I missed the signs? "It's not your fault, Michael," Amanda said, as if reading my thoughts. "Mental illness can be very hard to detect, even for those closest." When everyone left, I was left alone in my living room. staring at the phone. David's 9:15 calls. His insistence on knowing if I was alone. His secret entries in the night. It all had a darker, sadder meaning now than I could have imagined. That night, for the first time in months, my phone didn't ring at 9:15. Instead of relief, I felt a deep emptiness. My son was in a cell, facing serious charges, and I had just discovered that the threat to my life didn't come from the son I thought I knew, but from an illness that had transformed him into someone I no longer recognized. Tomorrow, I would have to face interrogations, paperwork, lawyers, doctors. But tonight, I could only think about all the times David had asked me if I was alone. Maybe, deep down, he was the one who had always felt alone, trapped in a mind that was playing terrible tricks on him, and I, his father, had failed to see it. I didn't sleep that night. How could I, knowing my son was in a cell, facing charges for trying to kill me? The dawn found me sitting in my living room, a cold cup of coffee in my hands, trying to understand how we had gotten to this point. At 7 in the morning, Amanda knocked on my door. She had dark circles under her eyes. She hadn't slept much either. "How are you, Michael?" she asked, though the answer was obvious. "Destroyed," I admitted. "I keep thinking I should have noticed. I should have seen the signs. Don't torture yourself. The important thing now is to get David help." She was right, of course. Amanda was always right. It's what I appreciate most about her, her ability to keep a clear head in a crisis. "I spoke with Marcus this morning," she continued, referring to Captain Reed. "David spent the night in the medical wing of the station. A psychiatrist evaluated him preliminarily. And? The doctor believes he is experiencing an acute psychotic episode. He mentioned paranoid schizophrenia as a preliminary diagnosis, but they'll need more evaluations." The word schizophrenia landed on my shoulders like a ton of bricks. I had heard of the illness, but always as something distant, something that happened to other people. What happens now? There's a preliminary hearing at 10. The judge will determine if David should remain in custody or if he can be transferred to a psychiatric institution while the investigation is completed. I stood up, resolute. "We have to be there." "Of course," Amanda nodded. "But first, there's someone who wants to talk to you." Before I could ask who, the doorbell rang. Amanda opened the door, and in walked a woman I hadn't seen in years. Jessica Anderson, David's ex-wife. "Michael," she said, moving in for a brief hug. "I'm so sorry." Jessica and David were married for 5 years. They divorced 2 years ago, supposedly due to irreconcilable differences. I never got too involved. I thought it was their business. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" "Amanda called me last night. She told me what happened." She sat across from me, nervously twisting a handkerchief in her hands. "There are things you need to know about David. Things I never told you." My heart sped up. What things? David started to change about 3 years ago, shortly before we separated. At first, it was small things. He'd forget important dates. He'd stare into space for minutes at a time. He'd talk in a low voice when he thought I couldn't hear him. "That doesn't sound so strange," I commented, though a knot was forming in my throat. Then it got worse. He started accusing me of conspiring against him. He'd say I was talking to his colleagues behind his back, that I moved his things to confuse him. One night I found him in the kitchen, in the dark, convinced someone had broken in to poison us. Every word was like a stab. How had he not told me any of this? "Why did you never tell me, Jessica?" She looked down. "He made me promise not to worry you. He said he could handle it, that it was just anxiety from work stress. He started seeing a psychiatrist, Dr. Robert Mercer. He seemed to be getting better with the medication." "Medication? What medication?" "Antipsychotics. I don't remember the exact name. When we separated, he was still taking them. He promised me he would continue his treatment. The pieces were starting to fit. The debts, the erratic behavior, the nightly calls." "Do you think he stopped taking his medication?" I asked. "It's the most likely. After the divorce, he lost his premium health insurance. The medications are expensive, and so is Dr. Mercer. Without coverage, maybe he decided he could manage on his own." Amanda, who had been listening silently, spoke up. "We need to talk to that doctor. Do you think he'd give us information on David's case?" "With a court order, definitely," Jessica replied. "But I can tell you something else. Toward the end of our marriage, David was obsessed with the idea that someone was watching him. Specifically through you, Michael." "Through me?" I asked, confused. "He believed they. He never specified who they were. Had installed devices in your house to spy on him. That they used your phone to listen to his conversations. Even when he wasn't with you. That's why he started avoiding visiting you. And now he was calling me every night to verify I was alone," I murmured, understanding the twisted logic. "He wanted to make sure no one else was listening. It's typical of paranoid delusions," Jessica explained. "They build complex logical systems based on false premises. How do you know so much about this?" "My sister is a clinical psychologist. After David's symptoms started, I read everything I could on the subject. The clock read 8:30. We had to get ready for the hearing. "Jessica, thank you for coming," I said, standing up. "Would you come with us to the courthouse? Your testimony could be crucial." She nodded without hesitation. Of course. Even though our marriage ended, I never stopped caring about him. While Amanda made a few more calls, I showered and put on my best shirt. I didn't know exactly what to expect from the hearing, but I wanted to be presentable. For David. For my son. We arrived at the courthouse at 9:45. The building was imposing, cold, as places where people's fates are decided usually are. Amanda guided us through hallways and offices to the correct courtroom. Captain Reed was waiting for us at the entrance. Beside him was a middle-aged man, with a salt and pepper beard and a calm expression. "Michael, this is Dr. Robert Mercer," Reed introduced us. "The psychiatrist who was treating David. He agreed to come as an expert witness." I shook his hand, grateful. "Thank you for being here, doctor. It's my duty," he replied in a grave voice. "David has been my patient for 3 years. I deeply regret that I couldn't prevent this." "When was the last time you saw him?" Amanda asked. "About 6 months ago. He stopped coming to his appointments and didn't answer my calls. It's common for patients with his condition to abandon treatment when they start to feel better, or when the symptoms tell them they can't trust their doctor." "What can we expect today?" I asked anxiously. "I've reviewed the preliminary evaluation report," Dr. Mercer explained. "I agree with the provisional diagnosis. David is experiencing a severe psychotic break, with structured paranoid delusions and possibly auditory hallucinations. My recommendation will be for him to receive intensive psychiatric treatment instead of incarceration." "And will the judge accept that recommendation?" Jessica inquired. "It depends on several factors," Reed interjected. "The severity of the attempt, the evidence of premeditation, the risk to society. But the doctor's testimony will carry a lot of weight, especially if you, Mr. Stafford, do not press formal charges." "Not press charges?" The idea surprised me, but he tried to. "Kill you, yes," Amanda completed softly. "But if it's determined he acted during a psychotic episode, without full awareness of his actions, the priority should be his treatment, not his punishment." Before I could answer, a bailiff announced the hearing would begin in 10 minutes. We entered the courtroom and took seats in the front row. The atmosphere was tense, suffocating. The side door opened, and 2 officers escorted David in. My heart sank when I saw him. He was wearing a gray detainee uniform, his hands cuffed in front of him. His gaze nervously scanned the room, without focusing on anything or anyone. When he finally saw me, his expression changed for an instant, but I couldn't tell if it was fear, shame, or something else. The hearing began with the formal reading of the charges: attempted premeditated murder, forgery of documents, insurance fraud. Every word was like a dagger. I couldn't reconcile that list of crimes with the son I had raised. The prosecutor presented the evidence: the device from the stove, the vial with the toxic substance, the photos from David's apartment with the forged documents, the forensic chemist's report. It was all overwhelming, irrefutable. Then it was the witness's turn. First, Theo testified, explaining the nature of the substance found and its lethal effects. Then it was Amanda, detailing how we uncovered the plan. When they called me to the stand, I felt like my legs could barely hold me. I swore to tell the truth. And then I recounted the story from the beginning. The nightly calls, the moved objects, the recordings of David entering my house, the discovery of the life insurance policy. "Mr. Stafford," the judge asked, a man with a stern face but kind eyes, "do you wish to press formal charges against your son?" I looked at David, sitting next to his public defender. He seemed absent, as if his mind was somewhere else, fighting battles invisible to all of us. "No, Your Honor," I answered firmly. "My son is sick. He needs treatment, not a cell." David looked up for the first time, his eyes meeting mine. I saw confusion, pain, and a glimmer of that little boy who once asked me to check under his bed for monsters. Dr. Mercer's testimony was extensive and detailed. He explained the nature of schizophrenia, how paranoid delusions can build entire alternate realities, and how David likely acted according to the twisted logic of those false beliefs. "In my professional opinion," he concluded, "David Stafford was not fully aware of the criminal nature of his actions. His illness clouded his judgment, replacing reality with a scenario of imaginary threats that to him were absolutely real." While the doctor was speaking, the back door of the courtroom opened silently. A man in his 50s, wearing a formal suit, entered and took a seat in the last row. He looked vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place him. After Dr. Mercer's testimony, David's public defender formally requested that his client be declared not guilty by reason of insanity, and that he be ordered transferred to a psychiatric hospital for evaluation and treatment. The prosecutor did not object, but asked for strict precautionary measures, considering the severity of the attempt. The judge heard both sides and then announced a 20-minute recess to deliberate. As everyone began to stand up, the man who had entered late approached us. "Mr. Stafford," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Bruce Patterson, David's former boss at National Insurance." Now I remembered him. I had seen him a couple of times at company events. "Mr. Patterson, what are you doing here?" "I heard about what happened from a contact on the force. I came to deliver something that might be relevant to the case." He took a folder from his briefcase. "These are the human resources reports on David's behavior during his last months at the company." Amanda took the folder and quickly scanned it. "This shows a clear pattern of deterioration." "Exactly," Patterson confirmed. "David was an exemplary employee until about a year ago. Then he started showing up late, acting paranoid with his colleagues, accusing other departments of sabotaging his projects. The breaking point was when we discovered he had tried to issue fraudulent policies in the names of several clients." "Is that why he was fired?" I asked. "Technically, he resigned before the internal investigation concluded. We decided not to press charges, out of consideration for his obvious mental state. We recommended he seek professional help." He looked down, embarrassed. "Maybe we should have been firmer. Contacted his family." "Don't blame yourself," Dr. Mercer intervened. "Mental illnesses are complex. Without the patient's consent, there are limits to what employers can do." The bailiff announced that the judge was ready to deliver his ruling. We returned to our seats, now with Bruce Patterson beside us. The judge entered, and we all rose. His face revealed nothing. Having heard the testimonies and examined the evidence presented, this court rules as follows. First, there is sufficient evidence to establish that the defendant, David Stafford, planned and began to execute actions that, if completed, would have resulted in the death of Michael Stafford. He paused, and the silence in the room was absolute. However, there is also compelling medical evidence that the defendant suffers from a severe mental disorder that significantly affected his ability to understand the criminality of his acts. Therefore, the defendant is declared not guilty by reason of insanity. A murmur went through the room. The judge continued. "The defendant is ordered to be immediately transferred to the state psychiatric hospital for comprehensive evaluation and treatment for an initial period of 3 years, subject to periodic reviews of his progress. During this time, he is prohibited from any contact with the victim without medical supervision and judicial authorization." I looked at David, waiting to see some reaction. But his face remained impassive, as if the sentence was about someone else. The judge banged his gavel, concluding the hearing. The officers approached David to take him away. "Can I talk to him?" I asked the public defender. "I'm sorry, Mr. Stafford. He will be transferred immediately to the hospital. Maybe in a few weeks, when he's more stabilized." I watched them take my son away, handcuffed, guarded like a criminal, but a victim of his own sick mind. I wanted to run to him, hug him, tell him everything would be okay, that we would help him heal, but I remained motionless, paralyzed by the mix of relief, pain, and guilt that overwhelmed me. Outside the courthouse, the sun shone with cruel indifference. Life went on. The world kept spinning, oblivious to how my reality had shattered in less than 24 hours. "You did the right thing, Michael," Amanda said, squeezing my hand. "David will get the help he needs. And after? What happens when he gets out? How can I ever trust him again? How can he forgive me for not seeing that he was suffering?" Dr. Mercer, who was with us, spoke up. "Schizophrenia is treatable, Mr. Stafford. With proper medication and therapy, many patients manage to lead functional lives. It won't be an easy road, but there is hope." "I'd like to visit the hospital," I said. "See where he'll be. Meet the doctors who will treat him." "I can arrange that," the doctor offered. "I know the director. In fact, if you'll allow me, I'd like to stay involved in David's case. I feel a certain responsibility for having lost contact with him." I nodded gratefully. At least David would have good professionals looking after him. Jessica approached, her eyes moist. "I have to go. I have a flight back to Chicago this afternoon, but I'll be in touch, Michael. And if you need anything, thank you for coming, Jessica. Your testimony was crucial." We said goodbye with a brief hug. As I watched her walk away, I thought about everything I didn't know about my son's life, all the signs I had missed. Bruce Patterson also said goodbye, handing me his card. "Please, keep me informed of David's progress. He was an excellent employee, very talented. When he's better, we could talk about possibilities of him returning." It was a kind gesture, though I knew David's road to recovery would be long. Amanda drove me back home. We barely spoke during the ride. We didn't need to. Her presence was comfort enough. When we arrived, I saw my house with new eyes. The place that had been my refuge for decades now seemed strange, tainted by the memories of what almost happened there. "Do you want me to stay with you tonight?" Amanda offered. "No, I'll be fine. I need to be alone for a bit. Process all this." She looked at me with concern. "Are you sure? It's been a very intense day." "I'm sure. I'll call you tomorrow, I promise." When she left, I slowly walked through each room, trying to reconnect with my home. In the kitchen, where the lethal device had been, I stopped. The clock read 9:13 p.m. For an instant, I expected the phone to ring at 9:15, as it had every night for the past 3 months. But it didn't ring, and I knew it wouldn't ring for a long time. I poured myself a glass of water and sat in my favorite armchair. On the coffee table was the photo of David when he was 10, smiling with crooked teeth, proudly holding his first math award. He was the bright boy I had raised alone, the promising young man in whom I had placed so many hopes. Now that boy was locked in a psychiatric hospital, fighting demons I couldn't even imagine. And even though he had tried to kill me, I couldn't help but think that, somehow, I had failed him too. 6 months have passed since David was admitted to the state psychiatric hospital. 6 months of weekly visits, of progress and setbacks, of hope and despair. The first time they allowed me to see him was 3 weeks after the hearing. He had lost weight, and the medication kept him in an almost lethargic state. He barely recognized me when I entered the visiting room. His eyes, once bright and intelligent, seemed dull, looking through me as if I were transparent. "Hi, son," I said, sitting across from him. A nurse stayed in the corner of the room, watchful but discreet. David blinked slowly. "Dad?" he murmured. It wasn't a question or a greeting, just a mechanical acknowledgement of my presence. "How are you feeling? Are they treating you well?" He shrugged, his hands, always restless. now rested motionless on the table. "The medicine makes me feel weird," he finally said, "like I'm watching everything from far away. Doctor, Mercer says it's temporary. Your body is adjusting." I mentioned Dr. Mercer because, just as he promised, he had stayed involved in David's case. He visited the hospital twice a week and kept me informed of his progress. David nodded, distracted. Then, without warning, he asked, "Why am I here?" The question left me cold. You don't remember?" "I remember fragments, things that don't make sense." He frowned, struggling to connect scattered pieces in his mind. "I remember calling you every night. I remember coming into your house when you were sleeping. But I don't understand why. You were sick, son. You still are. But you're getting better. What happened to me?" His eyes focused on me for the first time, searching for answers. How could I explain that he had tried to murder me? That he had meticulously planned my death to collect an insurance policy? "Doctor, Mercer had warned me it would be counterproductive to overwhelm him with all the details at once, that he needed time to process his fragmented reality. Your mind was playing tricks on you," I answered carefully. "It made you believe things that weren't true. You acted based on those false beliefs." "Did I hurt you?" His voice broke. "No, son. You didn't get to hurt me. Technically it was true. The plan was never completed." David looked down, ashamed. "There are times I remember voices. Voices that weren't real, were they?" "No, they weren't real. It was your illness speaking. That first visit was brief, but painful. My son was there physically, but a part of him was still lost in the labyrinth of his mind. As I was leaving, he stopped me by grabbing my sleeve. "Will you come back?" he asked in a small voice, like when he was a child and afraid I'd leave him. "Every week," I promised. "I'll be here every week without fail." And I kept my promise. Sometimes the visits were disheartening. David would be withdrawn, confused, trapped in his own thoughts. Other times, I'd see glimpses of the son I knew. He'd ask coherent questions about my work. He'd recall anecdotes from his childhood. He'd even smile occasionally. Doctor, Mercer adjusted his medications several times, searching for the balance between controlling the symptoms and allowing him to maintain some clarity. He explained that treating schizophrenia is a process of trial and error, that every patient responds differently. Meanwhile, I tried to rebuild my life. Amanda helped me install a new security system at home, not because I was afraid of David, but because I needed to regain the sense of safety I had lost. I went back to work at the shop. Though my colleagues noticed I was quieter, more introspective, Helen became my daily support. She brought me food, insisted we have dinner together at least 3 times a week, and never mentioned what happened unless I brought it up. Today is an important day. After 6 months, David will have his first formal evaluation before the judge. The doctors will present their progress report, and it will be decided if he continues on the same regimen or if the conditions of his hospitalization will be modified. I arrive at the courthouse early. It's the same one where the initial hearing was held, but today it feels different, less intimidating, maybe because I know what to expect, or maybe because I now better understand what's at stake. Amanda is waiting for me at the entrance. She has been my rock through this entire process, not just as a lawyer, but as a friend. "Good morning, Michael," she greets me with a brief hug. "How are you feeling?" "Nervous," I admit. "Have you seen the medical report?" "Yes. They sent it to me yesterday. It's quite positive. David has responded well to the treatment, although the doctors recommend he remain hospitalized for at least another year." "Another year?" The news disheartens me a little. Part of me was hoping he could come home soon, though another part knows it's too early. "It's what's best for him," Amanda says gently. "He needs to be completely stable before facing the outside world." We enter the courthouse together. Dr. Mercer is already there, reviewing some documents with David's public defender. "Mr. Stafford," the doctor greets me. "Ready for today?" "As ready as I can be." "How is David this morning?" "Relatively well. He understands the importance of this hearing. We've slightly reduced his medication so he can be more present, but he might still seem a bit disoriented. Can I see him before it all starts? The doctor checks his watch. We have a few minutes. He's in a waiting room with an orderly. Let me see if I can arrange it. While we wait, I see Jessica walk in. She came from Chicago for the hearing. We greet each other with a sincere hug, despite her divorce from David. She has kept in regular contact with me and has visited my son in the hospital several times. How do you see him? She asks me. Every week he's a little better, more connected to reality. Last month we even played chess, like when he was a teenager. Jessica smiles, nostalgically. He was unbeatable at that game. Did he beat you? 3 games in a row, I reply. And for a moment we both smile, remembering the David of before. Doctor. Mercer returns and signals for me to follow him. He leads me down a side hallway to a small room where David is waiting, accompanied by a kind-looking orderly. My son looks better than he did 6 months ago. He's regained some weight. His posture is more upright, and his eyes, though still somewhat dulled by the medication, recognize me immediately. "Dad!" he says, standing up to hug me. I hug him tightly, feeling his body, frail but stronger than the last time we met. 5 minutes, doctor, Mercer advises, giving us some privacy. Are you nervous about the hearing? I ask when we sit down. A little. David rubs his hands, a nervous gesture I know well. Doctor, Mercer says he's going to recommend I stay. It's what's best for your recovery, son. He nods slowly. I know. I'm not ready to leave. I still hear voices sometimes. Not as loud as before. But they're there. His honesty moves me. It's enormous progress for him to recognize his symptoms for what they are, not as realities. With time and the right treatment, those voices will fade, I assure him. Although, in reality, I'm just repeating what Dr. Mercer told me. I have no certainties, only hope. Dad, David says, lowering his voice, there's something I need to ask you, something that's been bothering me. Tell me, did I really try to kill you? His eyes fill with tears. The moment I've been dreading has arrived. For 6 months we've avoided talking directly about what happened, focusing on his recovery, not his crime. Yes, I answer softly. There's no point in lying to him. But it wasn't you. It was your illness, acting through you. David closes his eyes, the tears now streaming freely down his cheeks. I remember it. Not all of it, but enough. I remember the device on the stove. I remember the calls, to check if you were alone. It all seemed so logical then. Why, son? What were the voices telling you? He takes a deep breath before answering. That you were in danger, that they were watching you through other people, that the only way to save you was to make it look like an accident, so they would lose interest in you. The twisted logic of psychosis. For David, in his sick mind, he wasn't committing a murder. He was performing a rescue. And the life insurance? I ask, needing to understand all the pieces. That was to escape afterward. The voices said they would come for me once I had saved you. I needed money to disappear, to go far away where they couldn't find me. He wipes his tears with his sleeve. It all sounds so absurd now, so sick. That's part of the recovery process. Recognizing the irrationality of those thoughts. I say, again repeating Dr. Mercer's words. The orderly informs us it's time to go to the courtroom. We stand up, and before we leave, David grabs my arm. Will you ever forgive me? He asks in a trembling voice. I've already forgiven you, son. Now, you need to forgive yourself. The hearing is shorter and less dramatic than the last one. The judge, the same stern man with kind eyes, listens to the medical reports. Doctor. Mercer explains the confirmed diagnosis in detail. Paranoid schizophrenia, now in treatment, with a positive response to medication. David sits next to his lawyer, answering clearly when asked direct questions. He acknowledges his illness, understands the need to continue treatment, and expresses remorse for his actions, though he clarifies that he acted under the influence of delusions he believed were real at the time. When it's my turn to speak, I express my unconditional support for the medical recommendations. I ask that the possibility of supervised leave be considered in the future, so David can begin to gradually reintegrate into normal life. The judge listens to all parties and then issues his decision. David will remain hospitalized for an additional period of 12 months, with quarterly evaluations. A more flexible visitation schedule is authorized, and the possibility of supervised outings after the 9th month, provided the doctors deem it appropriate. It's a sensible, balanced ruling. It's not what I expected 6 months ago when this all began, but it's what's best for David now. After the hearing, we're allowed a few more minutes with him before they take him back to the hospital. Jessica approaches timidly. "Hi, David," she says. "You look good." My son looks at her with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Jessica, I didn't expect to see you here. I wanted to know how you were. I'm glad to see you're better." Their exchange is brief but significant. There are past wounds that may never fully heal, but at least there's no resentment between them. When it's time to say goodbye, David hugs me tightly. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he whispers. "I never would," I answer, my voice thick. "I'm your father. I will always be here for you." I watch him walk away with the orderly, walking taller, more present than 6 months ago. There's a long road ahead, but we've taken the first steps. Amanda, Jessica, and I leave the courthouse together. The afternoon sun bathes the city, reminding me that life goes on, despite everything. "Want to go for coffee?" Jessica suggests. "I have a couple of hours before my flight." I accept the invitation. As we walk to a nearby coffee shop, Amanda asks about my plans for the house. "Have you thought about selling it? After everything that happened?" I shake my head. "It's my home. I'm not going to let what happened take that away from me, too." I pause. "Besides, I want David to have a place to come back to when he's ready." "You're a good father, Michael," Jessica says. "You always have been." Her words comfort me, though I can't help but wonder if a good father would have noticed the signs sooner. If I had been more attentive, more present, could I have prevented David's illness from progressing so far? At the coffee shop, as we drink our coffee, Jessica tells us about her work in Chicago. Amanda talks about her other cases, and I listen, grateful for these moments of normality in the midst of the storm my life has been. When Jessica leaves for her flight, Amanda accompanies me back home. On the way, we pass the auto shop where I work. "Are you going back tomorrow?" she asks. "Yes." The routine helps keep me grounded. I'm glad to hear that. Life must go on, Michael. When I get home, Helen is waiting for me on the porch with a pot of fresh soup. "How did it go?" she asks, worried. "Good. David will stay in treatment for another year, but he's getting better." "Thank God," she crosses herself. "I've been praying every night. I thank her for the soup and her constant support. When she leaves, I enter my house. I no longer feel that fear, that sense of it being a dangerous place. I have reclaimed my home, my life." It's 9:15 p.m., the time of the call that will never come again. Out of habit, I look at my phone, even though I know it will remain silent. But this time, I'm the one who dials a number, the one for the state psychiatric hospital. After identifying myself, they transfer me to the nursing station in David's unit. "I just wanted to know how my son is doing after the hearing," I explain to the nurse who answers. "He's calm, Mr. Stafford. He ate his dinner and is reading in his room now." "Would you like to leave him a message for tomorrow?" "Yes, please. Tell him I'll call on Friday to confirm my visit for the weekend. And," I hesitate for a moment, "tell him I'm proud of his progress." When I hang up, I look at the photo of David still on the coffee table, the 10-year-old boy with his math award. Next to it, I place a new one, David and me, playing chess at the hospital just a few weeks ago. His smile is shy, but real, the first genuine smile in a long time. That night, as I get ready for bed, I reflect on how extraordinary a father's love is, how it withstands the worst storms, the hardest hits, how it persists even when all seems lost. My son tried to kill me, driven by the demons of his sick mind, and still, all I want is to see him heal, to see him be himself again, not for my sake, but for his. When I lie down, I don't check the locks. I don't check under the bed. I don't fear the shadows. For the first time in a long time, I sleep peacefully, knowing that David and I are both on the right path, a difficult path, full of challenges, but also of hope. The lie I told that night saved my life. But the truth, as painful as it has been, is saving my sons. And that's all a father can ask for. If my story moved you, please like and subscribe so you don't miss my next confessions. Remember, sometimes a lie can save your life, but the truth always saves the soul.